Welcome back to the Oracle Scroll. Today, we're going to talk about motivation. Hi there, Kevin Walder, your host for the Oracle Scroll. Glad to be with you today, and hopefully we'll transfer some information from the new deck that is continuing to evolve as we look at card number 11, Motivation. This card sort of popped out in a reading I was doing recently, and I decided it would be a perfect card for us to discuss this week. This is being recorded in the middle of August of 2020. Needless to say, motivation has been a very difficult thing for some of us to come by in the last several months, as we've worked our way through a global pandemic and the isolation that has evolved as part of our preparation and just being cautious and careful, making sure we are safe as well as our friends and neighbors. So motivation is something that is absolutely necessary. It originates from one of our three brains. Did you know we have three brains? We have three brains. We have a brain at the top of our body in the cranium, in the skull. That brain is our director, and it is capable of thinking and reasoning and putting things together, calculating, etc. It is an extremely, it's absolutely vital to our lives. So we have that brain. Then we have the brain that resides in our heart, that governs the more emotional side of life and lets us know when we're doing the right thing. And then we have the brain that resides in our gut. And that's the brain we're talking about today. Motivation is our passion. It's the thing that makes us get out of bed in the morning and get on with our lives. It's the thing that we absolutely must do. Motivation is the fire in the belly. It's the fire that feeds our soul. I like to say that motivation is speaking to us about the things that we can't not do. Yes, I know that's incorrect English. That's the point. We cannot ignore our motivations, our passions, the things that really inspire us to continue with life. Now, as we go through a lifetime, motivation changes frequently. When we first start out and we're maybe going to kindergarten, maybe our motivation is just to make friends. As we move through school, maybe our motivation is to impress a teacher or get good grades. We have many motivations. Maybe it's a matter of making a name for ourselves and a mark for ourselves as a performer or in a sport. So we need motivation to keep us going. Without motivation, we become a lifeless blob, and there's really not much we can do to inspire that. So we have to tap into our motivation, tap into what inspires us, and it is different for each one of us. That's what makes the world so interesting. Each of us has a different motivation. As we move from school into work life and making a living, maybe money becomes our key motivator. As we get into more mature years, maybe family becomes our key motivator. Each time things are just sort of shifting, and the motivation that we had last segment of our lives moves to a lower position. And then as we enter our golden years, as some people like to call them, the motivation becomes just enjoying the things that we really need in our lives. And that, quite often, is when we get to bring back the real passion, the real thing that we thought was going to be it for us. So many of us had a passion when we were younger for, maybe it was art, maybe it was music, maybe it was writing. But we had this passion for something we really needed in our lives, but we had to leave it behind in order to fulfill our societal role, to make a living, to support ourselves, take care of our families, etc. So we left behind those motivations. Now is when we need to bring those back. Bring them back into our lives. And especially now when we're already kind of feeling deprived and we're feeling restricted because of the situation we're in with the pandemic and economics and etc. We're feeling contained and constrained. And motivation is what will get us out of that. Nothing in life has ever happened without the inspiration of motivation. And sometimes we can be motivated by lots of different things. Sometimes they're not particularly positive things. So we have to figure out how we can transform those that are not particularly positive into something that is much more constructive, something that we can actually put to use in assisting and helping our fellow humans. So motivation is something we cannot live without. Once we lose motivation and we lose it completely, we have become lifeless. And even though we may still breathe and we may still eat, we're not actually functioning anymore. That's what makes motivation key. That fire is so important, and it is, as I mentioned earlier, the thing that feeds your soul. And you cannot live a fulfilled life without that motivation, that passion. Now, as I mentioned at the outset, this is card number 11. 11s, numerologically, can stand on their own and become quite key numbers. If we extrapolate it out, though, it becomes a 2. And I always think of the first 3 numbers there, 1, 2, 3. Those are work zones. That's where construction is happening. And the 2 is basically just after our concept. And then we begin to see exactly, oh my goodness, look what we could do with this. Look where we could go with this. Look who we can help with this. And that becomes our motivation. And that is the key to our very existence here on this earth. So, let's keep that in mind as we go forth and as our year continues to mature. Let's see how motivation can transform it from being a drudgery to something that gives us the opportunity to excel at something that we had forgotten we knew. We had forgotten how important it was in our lives. Motivation. It is key to a fulfilled and complete existence. Thank you once again for joining us for this episode of the Oracle Scroll. My books, Tarot for Lunch, Lessons from the Cards, and more recently, 22 Teachers, Healing Lessons from the Major Arcana, are both available on Amazon.com. Please check them out. They are very informative and helpful in learning and understanding the tarot. Also, please stop by kevinwalder.com, my website. You can book appointments for any of the services available at that spot. So stop by and take a look today. And most importantly, please subscribe by hitting the little red button down below, and also click the bell to make sure you don't ever miss an episode.